All right, I think we're live now. Hello, everyone. This is Professor Javidan, and I have Susan Child and Yashwan Nethi with me, my colleagues. Thank you very much for joining us. The purpose of our webinar today is for me to review your feedback reports on the Global Mindset Inventory, or GMI, and help you better understand what your report means and what you can do about it. And I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm using a random sample of a questionnaire for GMI, and I'm going to review your own feedback report by going through this anonymous report that you see on the screen. So let's get started. You see it on the screen, on your screen?
Not yet.
Okay.
It's still lag. There's a little bit of lag time. Yep. Should come on. It says at the bottom.
Although I didn't, I probably need to
Did you do the share?
share the screen.
So over
So
here.
gotta go here.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
I
right.
hit share.
Perfect. Oh, what did I do? Let's do this.
Try again.
Now let's have a look.
Yeah, you were getting that near effect.
Mhm.
Oh, now it's fine.
Does it look good?
Yeah.
All right. Well, before I start, please let us know if you can see on the screen the cover page of the Global Mindset Inventory Instructor Report.
So Jason says yes.
Mhm.
Yes. They seem to be good.
Perfect. So seems like everybody is looking at the screen showing my instructor report, sample feedback report. Let's go to page 2 of the report. Now, as I go through this report, you can do exactly the same thing with your own personal feedback report. And I'll explain everything to you. At the top of page 2, you see what is global mindset. You all by now should be very familiar with what is global mindset and its 3 major dimensions or capitals. Intellectual capital, which is the cognitive side; psychological capital, which is the emotional side; and social capital, which is the behavioral side. Why is it important? By this time in the course, I'm sure you are very familiar with that issue. The reason it's important is because it helps people like yourselves do a better job of working with others, individuals or groups, who happen to be different from you and who happen to be coming from other parts of the world. Can it be developed? The answer is yes. However, there are parts of it that are harder to develop, and there are parts of it that are easier to develop. And I will explain that as we go through the report. And by the way, as I'm going through these pages, if you have any questions or something you need some clarification, please send us a note, and I will take care of it. Let's go to page 4. I'm going to increase the size. Okay, good. Maybe even a little more, not too much. Okay. All right. On page 4, your own profile of global mindset in terms of the 3 capitals. I'll spend a couple of minutes on this page to explain how to interpret this chart. Once you know how to read this particular chart, all of the following charts in the report follow exactly the same format. So to begin with, blue always refers to psychological capital. Yellow always refers to intellectual capital, and red always refers to social capital. The olive bar is your personal score on the 3 capitals. As you can see, each olive bar is framed in a different color to represent the particular capital. The orange bar is the average of all the students, ID verified students, who have completed the GMI. So we have 53 students who completed the GMI as part of this course, and you see the average score for the whole group. That's the orange bar. The black bar is what we call the grand mean. It is the average of the scores of over 32,000 individuals all over the world. Now, of these 32,400 people, about half of them are in the US. They work in the US. The rest are from all over the world, many different countries like China, Japan, Germany, Canada, Mexico, and many other countries. The black bar also shows you that in the black bar, we have over 1,000 CEOs of corporations, over 6,000 vice presidents, executive VPs, SVPs in organizations. We have thousands of middle managers and upper middle managers. We also have data from specific industries, oil and gas, power, telecom, financials, etc. So it's a very large database. It's very robust. We're just showing you the average of what that group is looking like. Now, the last thing is you see the light gray bars. The light gray bars show you the range between the minimum and the maximum score for each group. So the light gray bar associated with the orange bar shows you the range between the minimum score and the maximum score for the group of students in this course. The light gray bar associated with the black bar shows you the range between the minimum and the maximum score for the big group. So there were people in the big group that received a score of 1, and there were people in the big group who gave themselves a score of 5. Now, you have all completed the self-assessment version of this instrument. This instrument is also available in 180, which means you do your own assessment and then your supervisor assesses you. It's also available in 360, which means you do your own assessment, your peers assess you, your direct reports assess you, and your supervisor assesses you. But for the purpose of this course, we're only using the self-assessment. Okay, now before I move on to the next chart, keep in mind that all of these charts are sorted based on the olive bar. So on the chart you're looking at, blue is on top, followed by yellow and red, because this individual, his or her score on psychological capital was the highest, followed by his or her score on intellectual capital, followed by his or her score on social capital. In your case, your own case, the color combination may be different depending on what your personal scores are. So keep in mind that as we go through the charts coming up, all of those are sorted based on your personal scores. Okay, let's move on. And again, if there is something that you need more clarification on, or if you have any questions, please send us a note and I will respond. Okay, let's look at page number 5 now. This is the structure of global mindset that you are familiar with by now. We've gone through this. There are 3 major capitals: intellectual capital, psychological capital, and social capital. Intellectual capital has 3 elements: global business savvy, which basically means how much you know about doing business in different countries. Cosmopolitan outlook means how much you know about different cultures, different histories. And cognitive complexity means how easy it is for your brain to handle all the additional information. So those 3 boxes combined is what we call intellectual capital. Psychological capital also has 3 elements. Passion for diversity means how much you enjoy traveling, meeting with people from different parts of the world. Quest for adventure means how much of an Indiana Jones you have in you, how willing you are to test yourself, to try new things, different things. And self-assurance means that you can succeed in a global environment. Social capital, the red boxes, also consists of 3 elements. Intercultural empathy means how easy it is for you to put yourself in the shoes of somebody else from another part of the world. How easy it is for you to connect emotionally with somebody who is from another part of the world. Interpersonal impact means how much experience you have in negotiating agreements, contracts with people from other parts of the world, and how big a network you have with people from different parts of the world. And diplomacy means how good a listener you are, and how easy it is for you to bring agreement and consensus among divergent views. So the picture you're looking at, the 3 capitals and the 9 elements, is what we call global mindset. And this report is going to show you your own profile in terms of every box that you see on this page. Now let's go to page 6. On page 6, we show you some examples of the questions that we asked you in GMI related to your intellectual capital. So under global business savvy, we asked you questions about your knowledge of global industry, your knowledge of global competitive business and marketing strategies, and a few other things. Cosmopolitan outlook, we asked you about your knowledge of cultures in different parts of the world, your knowledge of geography, history, and important persons of several countries. And on cognitive complexity, we asked you questions like your ability to grasp complex concepts quickly, your strong analytical and problem-solving skills, and a few other things. So for each bullet that you see on this page, one question, in many cases more than one, but at least one question on the questionnaire that you completed. Now, let's go to the next page. On page 7, you now see your own profile in terms of your intellectual capital. Again, the olive bar is your personal score. And the orange bar is the average for the group of 53 students in this class. Let's move on to page 8. On page 8, you see some of the questions we asked you about psychological capital. For example, passion for diversity, we asked you how much you enjoy exploring other parts of the world, how much you enjoy getting to know people from other parts of the world, and a few other items. Quest for adventure, we asked you about your interest in dealing with challenging situations, your willingness to take risks, and self-assurance, we asked you how energetic you are and how self-confident you are, along with some other items. Now, let's go to page 9 and look at your own psychological capital profile. What is interesting to me about the information in this chart is the orange bar associated with passion for diversity. As you can see, the average for the group of 53 students on passion for diversity is 4.55, which is extremely high. And that's probably a major reason why you are taking this course. Your interest, your excitement, your curiosity about other cultures, other ways of doing things, other peoples from all over the world. Let's go to page 10. Here you see some questions about social capital. So on intercultural empathy, we asked you questions like your ability to work well with people from other parts of the world, your ability to understand nonverbal expressions of people from other cultures. Interpersonal impact refers to your experience in negotiating contracts and agreements in other cultures. Your network with people from other cultures and with influential people. Diplomacy, we asked you questions about how easy it is for you to start a conversation with a stranger, your ability to integrate diverse perspectives, and a few other questions. Now, let's go to the next page, page 11. On page 11, you see your own profile in terms of the 3 elements of social capital. Let's go to page 12. Page 12, there's no new information. This is a replica of page 4. We're just reminding you of your own profile in terms of the 3 capitals. Let's go to page 13. Page 13 is the most important page of the report. It shows you your own profile of global mindset in terms of the 9 elements. And it is sorted from your highest score to your lowest score. And as you can see, the olive bars are framed in different colors to represent the different capitals and the different elements that they're part of. Now, of course, you see the light gray bars. The light gray bars, again, show you the range between the minimum and the maximum score on each element. And that way, you can compare your own personal score with the highest and the lowest score among the 53 students in this class. Now, here's why this page and this chart is very important. If on any elements of the 9 elements, your score is between 4 and 5, that means in your own eyes, because remember, this is self-assessment. There are other versions of this instrument, but you have completed the self-assessment. But in your own eyes, that particular element is a very strong suit for you. This is something you are very, very good at. For example, if you, on the chart that you see on the screen, this person has a cognitive complexity score of 4.6 or a cosmopolitan outlook of 4.43. These are extremely high scores. What that means is this person, either because of personality, because of life experiences, because of educational experiences, because of work experiences, all of those things, this person has a very strong ability when it comes to this element. Now, you can still improve. However, there is a limit to how much you can improve because you're already very close to the ceiling. Now, here's the big thing about these elements that you have a very high score. Do not ignore them. The fact that you have a high score on an element, it does not mean you can take it for granted. In fact, it's the opposite. If you have a high score on any element, you need to ask yourself, what are the things that I can do to continue my growth, to strengthen further my ability in this area, or to nurture this, whatever feature it is. The reason I'm suggesting do not ignore the high scores is because most of the managers that I work with immediately go to the low scores. And that is not the right thing to do, because you can actually leverage your strength in some elements to help improve your other areas. For example, let's use this chart that you're looking at as an example. Well, this individual has a quest for adventure of 4.4 and a passion for diversity of 4.17. What does that mean? That means this individual is like a sports car with a fantastic, powerful engine. However, go down to Global Business Savvy and you see that this individual's score on Global Business Savvy is 2.13. So this magnificent and powerful engine is sitting in a garage, has not been exposed, has not had opportunities to interact with people from other parts of the world, to learn about people from other parts of the world. So now the fact that this individual has very high passion for diversity can be leveraged to help this person learn more about Global Business Savvy. So that's what I mean. Leveraging your strengths to improve on the areas that need improvement. So again, to summarize, any score between 4 to 5 means you're doing a great job. Any score between 3 and 4 means you're doing a reasonable job. You're okay. However, if you choose, there are many, many options for improvement. There are many things you can do to improve. Now, if your score is 3 or below, in the case of this individual we're looking at, there's 4 elements that are scored below 3. If your score is 3 or below on any of the dimensions, you need to ask yourself 2 questions. The first question is, in your current job, in what you're doing right now, how important or relevant is this particular element? For example, if you are a salesperson for a global company and your clients are from different parts of the world, you need global business savvy. So when I ask you how important is that element, this person should say, it is very important because I'm in global sales. Now, if your answer is yes, it is very important to what I'm doing right now, then you need to make plans for improvement. However, if your answer is no, in what I'm doing right now, my current job, it is not relevant. If that is your answer, then you need to ask yourself a second question. And the second question is, given where your company is headed, what is the global strategy of your company? Given your own career plans, where do you want to be in the next 3 years? What kind of a position? How important and relevant is this particular element to your career plan? If your answer is no, it won't be relevant, it is not important to what I plan to do, then do not worry about this at all. The fact that you have a low score on this doesn't matter. You have more important things to worry about. Just because you have a low score, it does not mean you have a problem. You have a problem only if you have a low score on a particular element that is relevant to your current job or is relevant to your career plans. So a low score on its own doesn't mean anything. You have to put it in the context of or your future plans. So that is how we interpret this chart. The chart on page 13 is the beginning of your personal development journey. This is the chart you use to develop your own steps, the things that you are going to do to improve your global mindset. I'm going to pause for a few seconds now and give you a chance to send us any questions or anything that you would like to discuss.
Professor, maybe they'd like to hear you, because you just talked about developing their personal plan off of that page.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that they, where's a good place to start?
Mm-hmm. Well, my colleague, Dr. Jenny Walker, and I wrote a book called Developing Your Global Mindset. This is 600 pages of specific action-oriented recommendations for developing every one of these 9 elements with very specific actions you can take, or websites to go to, or books to read, etc. The book is called Developing Your Global Mindset. Unfortunately, we have run out of the print version, and the second edition is not out yet. But it is available digitally in Kindle Fire or iBooks. So if you're interested in spending some serious time on learning very specific action plans for improving your global mindset, I would strongly recommend that book. Now, in addition to that, I'm sure it'll be not too hard for the students to identify specific things that you can do in your own environment to improve the various elements of your global mindset. By the way, I should tell you that my book has its own website, developingglobalmindset.com. developingglobalmindset.com. There are free chapters, lots of information on that website that I'm sure you will find helpful.
So one question that I think we know the answer to, but maybe you can give some other suggestions, was will we be able to retake the GMI near the end of the MicroMasters program? So I think what she's trying to figure out is, as she tries to progress, how does she measure that? How does she rescore herself?
That is a very good question, and it is actually what we do at Thunderbird with all of our degree programs. So our incoming students, when they start any of our master's programs, they complete the GMI, and then at the end of the program, they retake the GMI, and we show them a very special report that shows them their incoming score and outgoing score. At this point, we had not decided, we have not made a decision on offering the retake of GMI. Seems to me it would be a good thing to do. So thank you for the suggestion. We will definitely let you know.
So I just posted the website for them, developingglobalmindset.com, so you can just copy and paste that.
Great.
We have Jason's posted where you can find your book on Kindle edition.
Great.
I think an interesting question or to ask you, what might be, as they go through, those people who plan to go through the next 2, right? They've already taken Chris's course, now they've taken yours. What are some good ways to think about practicing while they're taking those courses? How can they maybe think about applying?
Excellent question. Yes, this certificate program that you are part of, we're offering 4 courses: cross-cultural communication, leading people, global marketing,
states and markets,
and states and markets.
Yes.
So let me put those 4 courses in the context of page 13. States and markets, strictly cosmopolitan outlook. That's a course that focuses on how governments function. And as you know by now, cosmopolitan outlook refers to your knowledge of how political systems and regulatory systems work in different countries. So that's a perfect match for Cosmopolitan Outlook. Leading people, intercultural empathy, diplomacy, those two areas, and to a little bit of a lesser extent, interpersonal impact. In other words, leading people is really on the red side of these 9 elements. Global markets, straight connection to global business savvy. Because as you know, global business savvy refers to your knowledge of markets, consumer behavior, competitors in different parts of the world. So global markets is clearly focused on your global business savvy. Now, none of these courses are really designed to focus on quest for adventure, passion for diversity, or self-assurance, in other words. Partly because we assume, and in fact the data supports it, that people like yourselves who take this certificate program tend to have relatively high scores on the blues. Secondly, our expectation is that by the time you complete the 4 courses, an automatic outcome of the 4 courses will be a direct improvement in the 3 blue elements. So even though we do not have any specific action or course relating to the blues, the blue bars, in fact, taking the 4 courses will end up improving your profile in terms of the blue bars, in addition to the others. Thank you for the question.
I don't have any other questions right now.
All right, very good. So let's continue. Pages 14 and 15 are really not related to you, because they only show the average of the group score versus the grand mean. So the orange bar is the average of the 53 students who have completed the GMI, and the black bar is the grand mean. So as a teacher of this course, what I'd like to see is how by the end of the 4 courses, the profiles of our students overall changes. So once we do the graduating GMI, we will look at, okay, did this certificate program improve the overall profile of the students who have taken the 4 courses? But for you as individuals, there's really very little information that's of use to you. Now, when I work with a corporation, a typical client comes to us and says, we would like you to do a survey of GMI with a group of 40 managers in our company. Well, when we do that survey, the orange bar becomes very relevant, because the company wants to know the overall profile of these 40 managers. So the orange bar becomes very important to them. But as students in this particular course, what's important to you is your own individual score, because you are not an intact group. You don't work for the same company. You do not work together. That's why the orange bars here are not that relevant. And page 15 is the same profile, but in terms of the 9 elements. So it gives you a more detailed picture of the 9 elements of global mindset. Page 16 shows you pretty much the same information as you have seen so far, except it is in numeric form. So instead of giving you bar charts, we're giving you actual scores, because some managers told us they prefer to work with raw scores rather than bars. So that's why you have it here. The only additional information here is the percentile. So 75th percentile, 50th percentile, 25th percentile of the scores. Okay. Now, pages 17 to 19 are a series of questions. These questions are designed to help you start making plans for personal development. So the first question is, do you really need it? Do you need a global mindset? Is global mindset important to you? Yes or no? If it's not, don't worry about it. But if it's yes, then continue with the questions. And then the questions ask you a few things about your areas of strength, because we do not want you to forget about your areas of strength. And then it asks you to identify your areas of development. And then it asks you a series of questions about the steps that you will take to improve your profile. So the questions on pages 17 to 19 is really a template for you to start planning your own personal development. And that brings me to the end of the feedback report. So again, any questions, any comments? What did you think about your own profile? Did it make sense to you? What did you think about the feedback report? Is it easy to follow? Is it understandable? Any feedback for us?
Take a minute for somebody to. We have 9 now watching.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah, so our numbers are
Excellent. Yes.
So one of them says that they've recently redone the activity number 1 with a friend from a different country, and it is curious how in just 1 month some of my scores have changed. My friend is a translator, and she makes me ask good questions. The test is translated to the, then there's another question. That was a comment. So the question is the test translated to the executive language? You consider that depending on the culture, people may evaluate themselves differently.
Very good question. So first answer, this instrument is available in Japanese, Chinese, Spanish, Portuguese, and Korean. In fact, I'll be in Japan and China the next 2 weeks, working with executives from these 2 countries in their own language, because the instrument and the feedback reports are all in Japanese and also in Chinese. So yes, it is available. And if we have a client from a country that wants it translated into their own language, we have the ability at Thunderbird and Arizona State University to do that. Now, the second part of your question is a very insightful technical question. We know that if you give us a questionnaire to a Japanese person and to an American person, in all likelihood, the American person will give a higher score on the same scales than a Japanese person would. So we know that Japanese respondents, doesn't matter what the question is, to gravitate towards lower score. Americans tend to gravitate towards above average. Argentinians tend to go to the extremes, either very high or very low. So yes, Germans also tend to be very strict when they complete the questionnaire. So yes, there is a cultural bias in completing any questionnaire such as GMI. Now, what are the implications of this? The first implication is it doesn't really matter if the purpose of the Japanese person is to improve themselves. If the purpose of the American person is to improve themselves. In other words, there's no comparison between a Japanese and an American. The only purpose of the self-assessment GMI is to help you improve. That's all. There is no other purpose. Therefore, whether you give yourself high scores compared to a Malaysian person or not doesn't really matter. Because the Malaysian person wants to improve themselves, you want to improve yourself. So you ignore the cultural bias because it's irrelevant. When a company works with us and they have hundreds of managers in Asia, hundreds of managers in the US, hundreds of managers in Europe, completing the same questionnaire, and the company wants to know, to do a comparison between the overall profile of their Asian managers versus the American managers versus the European managers. In that process, the cultural bias becomes very relevant. And we have created a statistical methodology that controls for the cultural bias in responding to questionnaires. It's a very complicated statistical procedure. And we actually, my colleagues and I created this methodology to make sure that when we're comparing the average of the American group with the average of the Japanese group, we are not mistaken in our interpretation. If the Japanese average is lower than the American, it does not necessarily mean that the actual global mindset profile of the Japanese group is lower than the actual global mindset profile of the American group. It could mean that the way that the Japanese respond to questions by nature tends to be lower. So you need to use the statistical methodology that we've created to take out that bias. Thank you for that question.
Another question, in teaching this course, what has been consistent with students from your perspective, and what has given you direction to revise the course?
Okay, well, I'm going to start asking Susan and Yashwan, since they have spent a lot of time looking at the comments and they've been interacting directly much more with students than I have. I'm going to share my thoughts too, but both my colleagues have been spending a lot of their time with you students. So Susan, do you want to start? Would you like to make any comments about that?
Uh, sure. Let's see. It's the best way for them to hear me. You want to mute your microphone and I'll talk from over here?
Okay, and how do I mute my...
On the top, there's a little microphone. Oh, you have to switch back to not sharing your screen. So switch back to the presentation.
Stop sharing. Okay.
Okay, and then go back to...
This is YouTube.
Where were you? You can find your screen where you were in the
Is it this
session.
one? Yeah, I think this is.
It would be this one, but you're already there. So go ahead and click it. There you go.
Yeah. I'm mute.
Yashwan, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. On the student screen, does it still look like everyone can hear us? We just want to make sure since Professor Javidan's screen went blank.
No, we can see you, Professor.
They can see him on the student screen? Okay.
On the student screen, we see your personal observations page of the GNI report.
Okay. That should go off soon because he just stopped screen sharing. So hopefully that will catch up. So yeah, between you and I, looking at the students' comments, I would say what I see that the students are gaining out of it is the same that I see the comments in today's chat room, that they're able to gain from the conversations, the activities that we're having. And I wouldn't change that at all. They're beautiful discussions. They really are. Just sharing not only about what's different in their culture, but I see the students digging deeper and they talk about generational differences, that what they see themselves culturally do versus what they see their mothers, fathers, or grandparents do, and they're associating that it's not just cultural, that it's generational also. And I've seen some of the discussions talk about across the globe that quite possibly trends or ways of looking or think about things culturally may be coming to a little bit more equilibrium on a generational level. And I think those are beautiful insights that they're having to say that when they go to another culture, although it is still different, maybe it's not as different when their grandparents' generation, because of we are more global, we are more connected. So those things that we do are seen more often, and they're a little more acceptable across the globe. And so I think that for those types of things, I wouldn't change a thing. I think that the students, and even myself, I'm learning so much from just reading the comments. How about you, Yashwan?
In terms of observations which I've had, one thing that was interesting to notice was initially we were a little skeptical or apprehensive about the part about how group projects would kind of play in this environment, considering that it's people working virtually across time zones. And I think the course that way kind of worked out pretty well, and people were able to coordinate and team up, especially verified students among themselves and verified students with audit track students also. Interesting to notice that this was also one of the topics which is about building virtual teams together and working with virtual teams, which was covered in the courseware. So this course itself is an example about how people across coordinating together to kind of achieve common goals and results. And that's also kind of seen across through the examples and the discussion forums where people have shared a lot of their personal experiences, not just in terms of mapping it to what they've learned in the course, but have been able to use the course information to articulate it better. At the same time, apply their learnings and see changes in the behavioral pattern around them. So I think in that context, the model which we have for group work, coordinating, working with working with each other pretty well. There are a couple of things which we had in terms of feedback from students which we could work on or improve on. And I think it's going to be an iterative and a continual process to kind of those glitches.
Thank you, Yashwant. So I will add my comments now. This was my first experience in an online course, and Susan and her colleagues spent a lot of time educating me on how to do this and how to make sure that the content is helpful to the students and at the same time interesting enough to continue with the course.
Your microphone, did you turn it back on?
No, I did not.
I can hear you through mine right now.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Hi, Professor. I think your microphone is on mute right now. Yeah, this is fine.
Is it good now?
Yep,
Yashwant, can you? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So we designed this course not just to share information, knowledge about cross-cultural issues, but also to put you as students in the middle of real-life situations that a typical manager in a global environment faces. So every activity, every assignment was designed to create an opportunity for you to experience what you're learning in the course in a real life situation. And some of you, I'm sure, had challenges finding people, somebody from another part of the world, time zones, coordinating things. Those are exactly the things that I expected you to face, the challenges that I expected you to face. Because guess what? When you are working in a global environment, you would be facing every one of those challenges. So now you've had some practice, some tools, and you have used those tools in real life situations. So my hope in the design of this course was to give you a toolbox and to give you opportunities to practice using that toolbox. And from the feedback we have had so far, it seems to have been working. The fact that my colleagues tell me that even though we have almost 5,000 students, thousands of whom are not ID verified, but they've been doing all of the activities that have been set up for them. And that is very good news to me. Now, in terms of things to change, I'll have to wait until we see the full feedback from all of you, all of the students, in terms of your experience, what worked for you, what didn't work for you, what advice you have for us. I will wait until we receive that information. One thing that became clear to me early on was that we need to spend a little more time at the beginning or prior to the beginning of the course with our partner edX on the technology side, on the connection side, and to see if there are ways of preventing glitches. But, you know, I've been around and I know that no matter how hard you plan, there will be technological glitches. Question is, how fast can you fix it? But now that we've gone through this experience and we experienced a few of the glitches right off the bat, we have some information that we will share with edX, and we will hopefully try to avoid them next time. So that's my view of it. Anything else? Any other questions or comments? I see that we are beyond our 1 o'clock meeting, but I'm happy to spend a couple more minutes if there are any other questions or comments.
Do you see any questions in the chat room, Yashwant?
No, I don't see any questions in the chat room as of now.
All right, very good. Well, thank you all. Thank you for joining us. This is the end of the course now. I hope you have found the course valuable to you. On behalf of my colleagues, I'd like to thank you for your interest and for putting in the time and the effort. And I hope that we will keep in touch. Find us. We'd love to hear from your experiences, how life is unfolding for you, how you are able to use these tools in your day-to-day work. Thank you and best wishes. Bye-bye.